This is a tip for any guy watching.
Okay, guys.
Do not start a conversation with, "Hi, sexy." Don't do it. Don't do it. Unless you are asking for a very specific thing. If you want a nice date, don't do that. Or just say, "Hi, how are you? How are you doing?" That's fine. Don't start with, "You're so beautiful." Don't do that, because it creeps us out a little bit, because we get the creepy guys saying, "Oh, you're so beautiful," like right off the bat. First sentence. Wait later. You can say that later. Not at the very beginning, because you're like, suspicious. It's like, do you want my money, or do you want me? It's like, do you want the thing? It's by law, I'm considered blind. I'm blind enough to be considered blind. I have a very interesting medical background when it comes to my vision, because I was born actually blind. Although women have a very strong role in Mexican culture, it's still, the man is the head and should be respected and should be obeyed. Kind of like, I'll give you an example. We always have family dinner. We always do, and that's a very interesting thing that isn't as prominent in white culture anymore. I don't know why, but they don't really do family dinners anymore. Whereas with the Mexican culture, you have family dinner no matter what.
You're welcome once again to the studio, and please, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you click the subscribe button, as every week we'll be bringing interesting interviews to you, as always. I promise you that. And today I have someone in the studio. We'll be discussing something very, very interesting, like trauma, childhood trauma, experiences living in Korea, dating culture, and some other things that are interesting, and I believe you will watch to the end. So I want to introduce my guest. You're welcome to the studio, Anna.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, the first time we talked, you said you are legally blind. So I was confused what that meant.
Well, that just means that by law, I'm considered blind. I'm blind enough to be considered blind. My left eye is completely blind. In fact, I have a prosthetic right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it doesn't mean that's just a whole ball in my skull right now.
Yes.
My actual eye is still there. It's just very, very tiny. So I got an infection when I was about 2 years old.
Oh.
And in order to fight the staph infection, that's what it was, they had to inject steroids and antibiotics into my eye, and that caused it to turn into scar tissue.
Oh.
So although it's there, it hasn't been usable since I was 2 years old. So it's kind of like there's my eye, the prosthetic's on top, and if I took it out, my eyelid would sink down, so that's why I always keep it in.
Yeah, but someone like, for me, I didn't notice that initially. If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have noticed. So yeah, I thought maybe it's just like, I noticed that the eye, this one was a little bit smaller than this, but I didn't see it as like someone maybe that is blind or something. I wouldn't notice if you didn't tell me about this.
Right. And to be honest, I feel like if you were to look at my eyes, you would think this is the fake one, because it's a little off. It's a little.
Which one is the fake one?
This is the fake one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a very interesting medical background when it comes to my vision, because I was born actually blind, completely blind.
Wow.
Yeah. And so.
In both eyes?
In both, yeah.
Wow.
So it's really interesting. I have had cataracts, I've had glaucoma, I've had a lot of those, but I've had it in both eyes.
Yes.
And I've had an artificial lens put in, I've had a cornea transplant. It's a very unique experience and a very unique case. So on one hand, I can see any eye doctor I ever want.
Yeah.
Because it's a case that it just doesn't happen, because usually if it happens, it only happens in one eye. it doesn't happen in both, and it doesn't happen that young in a child, because most of my problems happened before the age of 6.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you said that how have you been able to cope all this while in terms of like managing the situation, in terms of did it affect in any way affect your self-esteem?
Well, I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride of, of sorts. I will say my vision is better now than it was when I was a kid, because back when I was in college, well, I act like I'm not in college right now, but
Yeah.
when I was in undergrad, I discovered an eye drop that my doctor put in my eye that was new. It wasn't the usual stuff they use to dilate my eye. It was a more gentler version, and somehow it turned my blurry vision clear. And my distance was the same as it always was, but usually it was like this white haze that was over my vision, and that's what I always saw with, for most of my life. And then I got that dilation drop, and I remember walking out of the office, and usually it's whenever I was in a bright light or outside, my vision would haze over. And I remember walking out, and I thought, what happened? Kind of thing.
Yeah, it happens like when you suddenly come into contact with bright lights or something.
Right. So it would happen whenever I had, when I was outside or with bright lights, or somewhere like this, where there's a lot of white surfaces where the light would bounce off.
Well, I hope it's not affecting you.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm using the eye drops. So
okay, thank you very much.
It's fine. But I remember I walked out, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? And my mom immediately was like, we're going back into that doctor. So we went back in. We found out what eye drops it was, and we got that. And I've used them ever since. And I didn't quite realize the big difference until the last few years, after I'd been on the drops for so long. And then there was a time that I couldn't get my hands on it for a little while, and I realized just how big of a difference and just how blind I'd been for most of my life. And I thought, wow, how did I not break any bones?
Oh yes. See, you talked about the last time we spoke. You talked about coming from a biracial family, like a bicultural family. Like your mom is American and your dad is Mexican. So how has it been growing up in such an environment? So which culture are you more aligned to, Mexican culture or American culture? And how has it been growing up in that kind of environment?
To be honest, that's a very interesting question. Because I'm not sure which one I really identify with more. I mean, I have Hispanic on my birth certificate. I have that on all my legal things, because they thought that would be, better for me to have that. But it's actually very difficult in a biracial family, because when you're with the white side of the family, you're too ethnic. Not too ethnic in the sense of, oh, you're the ethnic part. No, it's not like that. It's that we're around ethnic culture, and we grow up with ethnic culture. And so our culture that we grow up with is different than what our white half of the family gets. And so we don't quite understand them. And then we go to the other side, when we go with the Mexican half, although we experience some of their culture, we don't experience it the same way as they do.
They do, yes.
And so it's, we're that strange middle between them, where we're too white for the Mexican side. It's like, oh, those are the white kids, they don't really understand Spanish that well.
Yes.
But then we're too spicy for the white side. So it's interesting, but But yeah, my mom is white and my dad is Mexican, so I grew up with both.
Which part do you kind of lean more towards? Like in terms of culture, in the family, don't you experience like cultural clashes in the family?
Cultural clashes, yes and no. I would say that when it comes to cultural clashes, the biggest one is the kind of machismo, patriarchal side of Mexican culture. And then my mom's side is more matriarchal.
Wow.
I mean, yes, we do have the whole man is the head of the household and everything,
Yeah.
but my grandfather on her side died when I was very young. So my grandmother was the one that was running things a lot.
Yes.
And then on my dad's side, I knew my grandfather on that side, we called him abuelito, because abuelo is Spanish for grandfather.
Yes.
I knew him for longer, but to be honest, I feel that although women have a very strong role in Mexican culture, it's still the man is the head and should be respected and should be obeyed. Kind of like, I'll give you an example. We always have family dinner. We always do, and that's a very interesting thing that isn't as prominent in white culture anymore. I don't know why, but they don't really do family dinners anymore. Whereas with the Mexican culture, you have family dinner no matter what. You have it no matter what. It doesn't matter if we just had a fight or someone came home angry. We're still gonna sit down and have a meal together.
Yes.
But it's kind of like there's an order in which people get served. So the man gets served first, the children get served second, and the wife gets served last. Because usually it's the wife, the one that's serving everybody.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And that's usually how that goes, and you don't really think about it until you think about it. But I feel like between the two, I tend to identify with the Mexican side because my dad is patriarchal and does push a lot of machismo culture on us, which is what the Mexican culture is.
But you think one of the things that creates the kind of machismo culture of Mexican is the men trying to provide for the family. Like in a situation whereby it's the woman that provides for the family, do you think that culture will still persist in the family?
Men trying to be providers, yes, that's still quite a thing in Mexican culture. The whole thing about, think of the word macho. So a man needs to be the man, he needs to be a provider, he needs to be like the strong man.
Yes.
So macho, machismo kind of thing, you can think of it like that. I know that's not exactly where that comes from, but it's similar. So there is a need to provide, and then there's their need to be respected, and that tends to come from belittling the rest of the household and making sure that they are not only the provider, but also the one that says what goes, kind of thing. And not everyone's like that.
Yeah.
You know, not all families are like that.
Yeah.
Mine was, and my dad, he had his moments where we would all think, oh, why? Why does he have to be this way? But, oh well, it is what it is, I guess. Yeah.
When it comes to like expressing emotions, like, you know, men don't like to express their emotions. So in that Mexican culture part, do you see your dad like expressing his emotions, like in terms of like, you know, what I mean, expressing that vulnerable part of him?
Yeah, no, to be honest, I don't know if it's machismo or him. It probably is the machismo a little bit. Men really are not vulnerable as much as they should be. And because there's nothing wrong with a man being vulnerable and showing his feelings. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't know why there's this whole thing about men shouldn't be vulnerable or men feel like they shouldn't be vulnerable. I think that's a sensitive point for everyone because being vulnerable means the person or people around you see the most sensitive part of you.
Of you, that's right.
Right, and so maybe the whole idea of being a tough, strong provider means that you have to be this rock for the family.
That's right. Yeah.
But that tends to cause emotions to build up. They like
It's right because
Yeah.
one thing I notice is that most people that don't express that emotion, like women, we tend to be very all strong men and every other thing. And once that emotional build up, we tend to express that in terms of anger. Yeah, in terms of like family, like expressing it in terms of anger and other things. Yeah, because we tend to hide our inner feelings. Or you come home from work and your wife says, "Honey, how was your day?" It's fine. You understand? Even if something went wrong,
right.
you just summarize it as being fine.
Right.
But your wife comes home and if there is something wrong, can you imagine the car I was driving and this car? And once she expresses herself, she feels calm and she forgets about it. But the man, we tend to build that kind of pressure. Even I think we were taught that from a very young age that if something happens to you and you want to cry, you're a man. Why are you crying? Understand? You're a man. You're supposed to be a man. So you have to man up. Understand to that. So we start from a very young age to teach people how to man up or something like that. How not to express how they feel or something like that. So and you find out that at later age, stress build up, everything build up. It starts exploding and everything. So I wanted to ask is coming from your dad coming from such a background where the father is seen as the head of the family. Yeah. How did your mom? How did they make that arrangement work?
Well,
Yeah.
here's the thing. My dad and my mom are both very strong, dominant personalities.
Wow, how come two strong dominant personality? Oh, tell me about it. Yeah.
Think of it this way. It's kind of like two bulls trying to get the same area. They're butting heads all the time. See, the thing is, although my mom was raised with the traditional culture,
Yes.
white culture she didn't really grow up so much with the whole independent woman thinking.
Yeah.
She was raised with the traditional values. And so she was okay with being that to a point. But then once it got too far and my dad pushed it too much, then, she would butt back and it didn't quite work out.
Well, yeah.
I had quite the explosive childhood with my parents. It wasn't a question of if it was going to happen. It was a question of when it was going to happen that day. So they both had their opinions, and they were both non-changing in their opinions, and that tended to cause problems.
Problems, like, yes. Because I noticed sometimes if the man is dominant, it requires like a less dominant person so that they can cohabit. And if the woman is the dominant, the man has to be less dominating so that they can come together. Like for you, which one would you prefer? Would you prefer like your husband to be kind of dominant as the head of the family, or would you prefer being let's share this role together? Like, what's your view?
Well, you would think I would say, I would want a dominant man. No. No. I can run a household by myself. That's fine.
Yes.
I don't want somebody who is trying to get the top dog spot in the house. I don't need someone like that. There doesn't need to be a fight. I want a partnership, not someone saying, I'm more than you. I'm the provider. I am doing this for you. But they use that as kind of like, I'm doing this for you, so you should do this for me. And that tends to be what that ends up being, where I'm not saying all, but like some men, they take the provider role, but then they use it as leverage to make their family do what they want.
Yeah.
They're saying, oh, I make the money, I go to work, you need to do what I want because I'm the one bringing the money. And then once the woman comes in and says, well, you know, I could work and you could stay home, it suddenly turns the whole situation on their head, and their whole leverage is gone, and that tends to start a fight.
Yeah. But you know, just like what you said, I was discussing with someone about being you know, the housewife and men being how do you call it, stay-at-home dad.
Yeah, stay-at-home dad, house husband.
Yeah, house husband or something like that. So I was discussing with someone and we were arguing, though does stay-at-home dad, will it naturally fit a man? Like how do I put it? You know, men generally like ego, like respect. You understand? Why women naturally like to be loved or something like that. Understand? So women like being loved, being shown that you love them. But men prefer being respected than being loved. You understand? So if the table switches and the man has to stay at home and the woman be the provider of the family, do you think it will bruise the ego of the man and bring problems in the house?
I feel that really depends on the person.
Okay.
Because some people, their ego might be bruised, absolutely,
Yes.
by feeling like they're the one staying home. But others, I don't feel like they would feel that way. Because, for example, if they just naturally love kids and they love to take care of a household and they're perfectly okay with that, and the woman wants to work and is a very dominant personality, then it works and it's fine. I think it really just depends on the person, and it also comes down to what are you really like putting on those roles of the house. Like, does the provider have to be the man? And if you think, or if you're getting insulted by the idea of staying home and not being the provider, then what does that say about the women who do those roles? Are you saying that that role is less or less important or of a more, I'll say lesser status than being the provider? So what does that say about your mentality of it?
Yes. You know, let's move on to another thing that you said. So when we are talking, you said, but I really want you to explain more. Like that was my first time of hearing that, like the eldest daughter syndrome or the second mom syndrome. So what was that about? Like,
yeah, the oldest daughter slash second mom syndrome, I like to call it. It's kind of a situation where the mom, when they are overwhelmed or they are in a situation where they want to kind of self-isolate, then they just tend to put a lot of responsibilities on the oldest daughter, because it kind of goes along with the whole traditional values of women will stay home, take care of the household, take care of the family.
yes.
And so you tend to instill values a lot more on your first few kids.
Yes.
And so when you have your first daughter, they're the ones that are expected to help, the most around the house. And then let's say another kid comes around, or another kid, then the oldest daughter is asked to help take care of the kids, help take care of the house. And that can tend to build into basically becoming the substitute mom. And it's just expected of you. There is no, oh, thank you for doing this. You're just expected to do it, and it's odd if you don't. For example, I'll give you this example.
Yes.
So when I was in high school, my mom decided that she wanted to go back to school. Great for her. Awesome.
Yes.
But kind of, there was a bit of a caveat to that because her classes were in the evening and I was at school all day, right, as one is. And so I would get home around 5 p.m. and then she would head straight to classes. Well, it was expected that I would make dinner for the family, clean the house, make sure everything's together, and then once the dinner was made and the table was set, then I would call everybody to have dinner. Then, I would clean up after dinner and everything, help my siblings with their homework, and then I could get to mine. Then my mom would come home. My dad did not help. Did not help at all because it wasn't his job to do that.
Yes.
And my mom didn't think anything of it because it was a no-brainer for her that I would take over that role for her while she was gone. Because, like I said, the oldest daughter, second mom syndrome thing going on, where it was just expected that I would take over if she had something going on.
Yes. I kind of relate that as well to myself because I'm also the eldest. So, and my younger sister, I remember when our last child was born. So my mom is a government worker and my dad was also a government worker. So, go working by 9 and come back by maybe 4 or something like that. So there were options, and my immediate younger sister has to pull out from the morning school to the evening school. Understand? So what happened was like once she would stay home in the morning, take care of the younger one, while my mom and dad go to work and I go to school. So whenever I finish from school, other kids will be like strolling. I'll be running. Understand? Running, going home. Understand? So if I remember those situations, how I'm like, wow, the kind of effort as children we put in. So I remember whenever as I'm running home, she will be with our last child in the balcony waiting, with dressed for the school and her bag and everything, waiting for me to come. Immediately I come, we switch over, and she runs into school. So like I remember those days, and I'm like, wow, that's she on her own made a lot of sacrifices. Understand, like, educationally, because she made a lot of sacrifices for educationally for the kids, because I remember the morning classes were more on like high level than the evening classes. You understand? You understand what I mean?
Right.
Like most prominent schools, like top schools that you hear their names are morning. They don't have the evening classes. So the evening classes was put in, and the people that offered those evening classes were basically schools that were B grade schools, B, C grade schools. So for she, at an early age, to attend those B grade, C grade schools, so it might also affected her educational level or something like that. But she was able to bootstrap herself up, But the that kind of competing, you understand, with someone that from the A grade school and someone that went from the B to B grade school or C grade school is quite the difference. So that's so I quite relate with the second mom, but I'm not a mom. I'm second dad, or I don't say mom. I classify myself whether a second mom or second dad
Second man in the house, I guess.
But I understand the relatability of the eldest child say syndrome and every other thing. Yeah.
See, and that was the thing, because I don't really blame her that much for it, because it wasn't just her. Because I have 3 other siblings, and we're all similar ages. So I have an older brother who's 2 years older than me, and then I have a younger sister who's 2 years younger than me, and then another brother who's 5 years younger than me. So And we all actually learned how to cook very young. So I think my mom taught us how to cook starting around the age 7, kind of thing. And my dad was fully capable. But yet, not one of them would assume the responsibilities that were required to be taken over. For example, my brothers, the chores that they were expected to do were mow the lawn, which happened once a month,
Yes.
and take out the trash. They never took out the trash. I took out the trash. And it's funny, to this day, if I go home and visit my family, I still take out the trash.
Those are rules that have been with the years.
It's very funny. I don't know why, but then all the indoor chores ended up going on the girls. But then my sister would only want to help sometimes, and so it just ended up being on me. And my mom always excused it by saying, "Well, but you're the responsible one." Like, should I get punished for that? Should I get punished for that? And whenever one of my siblings did something, anything, then my parents would be like, "Oh, thank you so much for doing that." And I'm looking at them like, "What? What about us?" And she's like, "Well, you do that. You're just so, like, it's expected." I'm like, just because it's expected doesn't mean I shouldn't get a thank you here and there.
For that, yes, that's right. It also helped as well because as children we understood that sense of taking responsibility. Yeah, you take responsibility for something. You know that you have someone to look after. You take responsibility. Like I told you, why other kids were after school they go and play a little bit. I have to run home knowing that someone is waiting for me. You understand? So if I miss 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 20 minutes late, she's going to be late to school. So it's going to affect her. So that kind of responsibility mindset, we grew up with that kind of responsibility mindset. Though, like our parents, we are able to how do I put it? To improvise, you understand? Like with us. To improvise. Like you being the second mom, and I also trying to tender for my younger ones, and they improvise. But young people now give excuses the difficulties of raising children as the reasons why they don't want to get married or they don't want to raise children. Understand? Do you see that as a valid excuse, or do you think they can also improvise as well as they go along?
Well, here's the thing. I feel like it's the biggest lie in our lifetime that we know what we're doing. I think so many people, so many adults will say, "Oh, once you get to a certain age, you'll understand. Once you get to a certain age, you'll get it." I get certain points, but I think most people are just making it up as they go along and hoping no one notices because we tell each other that we have it and we understand and we know what's going on. And so I feel like the problems that a lot of parents did or even currently cause is just from they're making it up as they go along, but they don't want to say they're making it up as they go along. And for example, all the books that they'll read or all the videos they'll watch or all the advice they'll get from other people sometimes can be helpful and great. Sometimes it's not, and you never know. And so that's why you tend to see a progression with kids, with siblings. You'll see either it gets better as it goes down or it gets worse as it goes down. You never know how that's going to go.
Yes.
But it's usually... well, the first one, like my mom used to refer to my older brother, poor him, she would call him the guinea pig because he was the first one, the first to go into poet school, the first to go to college, the first to anything.
Yes, that's
and
right.
so he was the poor guinea pig of the house for certain things. And you learn as you do, and we have to recognize that our parents didn't really know what they were doing. They said they did, but they didn't. I mean, you realize that once you get older. You like to convince yourself you know things, and Also, what you mentioned earlier, the responsibility mindset
Yes.
that we were put on as kids.
Yes.
I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's good either. Because to be honest, I feel like a certain level of responsibility is great for kids because they should. They should have some sense of responsibility. However, once it gets to a point where you're expected to act like an adult
Yes.
and take care of others or do things as an adult,
Yes.
I feel like it messes with you mentally.
Yes. Yeah. It's taking the childhood away from you.
Yeah, it matures you like sooner than you should.
Yes.
And then what ends up happening is, or at least how it happened for me, is that I felt like an old lady and I didn't really relate to the other kids as much growing up. I related to their moms and their grandmothers, and I would talk with them about cooking and cleaning and stuff. And the other kids would want to talk to me about things, and I would not really get it or understand or think, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, let me talk about something personal because I remember you said about being ignored and the family, and also at some point it affected your self-esteem and you felt as a failure or something. So can you throw more light on that? What are those experiences that made you feel that way?
When it comes to being ignored,
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I was ignored a lot. Because I would say, one, I was am a pretty quiet personality.
Yes.
And so I cannot tell you the amount of times, and I'm not lying about this is real. I would be sitting next to my mom. We would have company over, we would have people over, everyone's talking. I would be sitting right next to her. And she all of a sudden would go, hey, has anyone seen Anna? It's been a while. I haven't seen her for a while. And I would go and look at her and say, Mom, I'm right here. And she'd go, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I didn't even see you. I'm like, I have been sitting here for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah. Was that intentional or was that just to play with you?
No, it was intent. She genuinely forgot I was there. Sitting next to her. And she would explain it to me in the sense of, well, here's the thing, Anna.
Yes.
You're the kitty cat in the corner, and everyone else are puppy dogs in the middle of the room. So everybody's paying attention to the puppy dogs in the middle of the room, making noise and playing around, and you're the kitty cat curled up in the corner people forget about. I'm like, thank you for telling me I'm forgettable. So,
yeah.
And the thing is, looking back, I don't really feel like I was that quiet. It was just that I didn't really have anything I wanted to say. And if I don't have something I want to say, then I won't talk because there's no reason to.
Yeah.
But if I have something to say, then I'll be like, let's talk about this.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I feel like I was put in that quiet kind of role. I was expected to be in that role of being the quiet sibling, the one that just kind of sat there and kind of just didn't do much. And if I tried to go out of that role, I would be quickly put back in my place.
In your place.
And kind of like just cut out of conversations and cut out of things. And so I'm like, okay.
Well, another thing before we move on to another part of the discussion is we talked about toxicity, like especially with friends. Yeah, can you tell us maybe your personal experiences concerning that?
Oh yeah, so I think this was a bigger problem when I was younger because I like to say that I've grown a bit since I've gotten older, but when I was younger, I was a very, okay, sorry, kind of thing, kind of person. That's really who I was. And to be honest, I was a big people pleaser. I mean, I'm a people pleaser now, but I was very people pleaser when I was younger. And so I was. And so because of that, I was very accepting for other people. I mean, even to this day, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, which is great, until it's not. And then you become friends with people who are very manipulative or controlling or are the type that will cut you after like one time you say no, that kind of thing. So it makes you want to be more of a people pleaser when you're in those relationships because you don't want them to leave. And they make that kind of a big point of the relationship that if you aren't useful anymore, they don't need you. So you need to be useful to them for them to want to stay. And they make it feel very transactional. And so sometimes there were times when I had a friendship that I thought wasn't that way. And I thought, oh, I finally have friends that actually want to be around me and actually want to be friends. They're not looking for anything from me. And then they might invite me to something and I would have something else that day. And like, oh, well, sorry, I'm busy that day. And then suddenly it's like the friendship goes down to a point of it's not even there anymore. Or it'll get cut off immediately. And then you realize, you start to look back over things and you think, wow, how did I not see that? Or maybe you did see it, and maybe you did feel it, but you convinced yourself that you were wrong, or you convinced yourself, well, maybe I'm just thinking about it too much. Maybe they're not really doing that. Maybe it's just an accident. And then you realize, man, it wasn't an accident. They really were that way. And then you think, man, I was a pushover. I really was, wasn't I? Dang. That kind of thing.
One thing I noticed, and if you are a parent listening, I think you should learn to show love, especially to your daughters, to your children, because I noticed something, that people that don't grow up being loved by their parents, they are maybe some quiet person, the parents didn't show much affection to them and everything. And those kind of people, once they get to maybe from 15 and above, 14 and above, because let me give an example. I've seen some girls that they didn't get that affection from their parents, that validation from their parents, that from a very young age. And when they reach kind of 14, 15, teenagers, or maybe when they reach 16, 18 years or become an adult, and one manipulative guy somewhere tells them that, wow, you look pretty, you're so pretty, you're so this, they tend to make that person their God. Understand? Make that person that God. Like, you feel that everything the person says is right, and no matter how manipulative the person is, you tend to stick and be in that relationship. Understand? And that's why some persons get unwanted pregnant at a very young age. You'll be wondering, how is this girl that's always quiet, always calm, always peaceful, how did she end up in this kind of messy situation? Understand? Because she was looking for that validation from the family while growing up, and she didn't get that. So the guy that immediately tells her that she's pretty, you're beautiful, you're this, she follows the person and makes sure not to leave that person, even if it becomes abusive. Understand? So I want to tell people, though, if you have children, make sure you tell them, validate them, you understand, at some particular point in time. You understand? Like I was talking with a friend, and I was talking, and she said to me that at a very young age, that her dad was calling her princess. You understand? So if a guy calls her princess, he say, "Oh, you're the second person. You're last of the game." You understand? Yeah, you came last because my dad. This is what my dad has called me all this while. So you came last of the show. So it doesn't make her, if a guy calls her a princess or something, it doesn't make her go bananas like, wow, that kind of stuff, to make sure that they're fitting. Yeah. So I think that's a very vital thing that every parent should learn how to do, to give validation to their children. I know in some cultures, like in my culture, I never heard my dad tell my mom, I love you.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna say something on that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why, and maybe it depends on the culture. I don't know.
Yes.
But I have noticed this trend
Yes.
with a lot of guys that they will never say anything good or nice to their kids or their wife or whatever, but then they'll say good things about them to other people.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, my mom would tell me, "Oh, your dad says such good things about you to other people, and he brags about you." I'm like, well, why doesn't he say those things to me?
Yes,
As
yes.
far as I know, he hates me or thinks I'm a total like failure. Like what?
Yes,
And she's like,
yes.
no, he's really proud of you. I'm like, could he say it once in his life?
Yeah, but it came to a point. I remember my dad didn't say anything. I love you to my mom, or maybe this or this to us or something. So my dad used to is like you said, like the kind of the father is the head of the family. So my dad kind of you did this, you did that, like, you know, as a kid, and so when you also make some mistakes. So I remember when there's this plate that we used to serve my dad his meal. So when I was young, so I kind of my dad came back and said, "Oh, bring my food for me." So I was bringing the food, and he slipped and he splashed every other thing, and it broke, and that day my dad was very hungry. So he was like, he knocked me on the head. "What are you doing? What are you looking at? Can't you look straight?" or something like that. So, and after that I said I was lying on the bed. I had headache. I have headache. So he went and brought some medicine for me and said. Take this medicine instead. So he found it difficult to say, "Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. Instead, I shouldn't have done this." Instead, they don't say it verbally, but in some action, going to get the drugs from me and say, "Come, take this drug," or something like that. Take this medicine was kind of a way to show that, "Oh, I'm sorry," understand, for what happened, but they didn't kind of voice that kind of stuff to me. So,
Right.
yeah.
I feel that also circles back to what we said previously about men not showing vulnerability.
Yes.
Because I feel like saying you're sorry, saying you're wrong, or saying how much they mean to you, or how much you love them, I feel like that goes into vulnerability, and they don't like to show that. It's a sensitive thing, whatever you're saying, whether it's sorry, I love you, or thank you so much for doing this for me. It's showing vulnerability, and that goes into the I don't need to do that kind of thing. But they'll say it to other people because it's not vulnerability, it's bragging.
It's bragging, yeah.
It's showing them off. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Sorry, I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
I just remembered something I wanted to chip in.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's still in our way. The way if you wear something that is very in my culture, like an African culture, if you wear something that is very good, people don't compliment you as being good. They use the negative to compliment. You understand? Yeah, like you're wearing this. They say, like, your hair is pretty. You understand? And every other thing, yeah. And you want to say, well, what kind of hair is the? What are you putting on? Did you think that hair looks nice? You understand? So once I say that, you know, it looks nice. You understand? We don't say, "Oh, wow, your hair looks nice. Oh, you're so pretty," and that kind of. So they use indirectly to tell you, what are you like? Okay, for example, if I cook something, if I cook food, it's sweet. You understand? But my mom can say, "Yeah. This food is nice. It's a little bit salty. Next time, know how to moderate your salt. Understand?" But I think it's a little. You have to learn. Understand? But mom you're eating, you're almost finishing the food. My mom say, if I don't eat it, who will eat it? You understand? That kind of stuff. So if I don't eat the food, who will eat it? So it's kind of telling you that you did very great. You understand? Like,
and I was like
indirectly,
that.
indirectly, because if the food is not good, she's not gonna eat it. You understand?
Yeah.
But she will tell you. She will not tell you like plainly, wow, the food was wonderful. You are the best cook. Every other thing. Yeah, it was nice, but next time just know how to moderate the salt and a little bit, and you're consuming the whole food.
Salt. It's always the salt. It's like it can use a little salt.
Yeah.
You're like, well, they got a second portion. You know they liked it.
Yeah. So and in some cases they will finish the food and ask you, is there some more? Is there extra one there? Well, you said the salt is yeah. If I don't eat it, who will eat it? So that kind of stuff. So the validation comes sometimes from expressing it in an indirect way. You understand? Or either in an opposite the direction. So yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah, you are a pretty lady.
Thank you.
Yeah. No. It's a sincere compliment. You understand? So yeah. So we'll be talking about how has your dating experiences been, and where do you think how has it been? Let's start here in Korea. How has your dating experiences been?
In Korea or in general?
In general.
Okay.
Yes.
My dating experience. Here's the thing: 99% of my dating experiences happened in Korea since I moved here.
Wow.
When I was in America, I really didn't date that much, if at all. I went on one actual date, because one, I was one of those study nerds kind of thing.
Oh.
Two, I can't drive, and I live in Texas. So that means you need either someone to pick you up or you need to take an Uber, and Ubers are expensive and I was poor. So, and I did not want them coming to my house because I didn't want my mom coming in and saying, oh, come in, like, tell us about yourself. I was like, no, we're not doing that. So I just didn't date. I think, I only went on 1 or 2 dates at all in America, and I didn't go anywhere. But in Korea, I've been dating quite a bit, and let me tell you, it is easy to find a date. Emphasis on a date. It is easy to find one date.
Yes.
What's hard is to find multiple dates with the same person. I think it's because you go on a date with somebody and you find out whether they were lying to you or they were honest in the conversation. And even if it was a wonderful date, you still might not get anything back from them at all. And you thought, well, what was all the waste for? What was that for? I've dated quite a bit in Korea.
Yeah.
And it's been a ride. It's been quite the experience.
Yeah. So, how did you meet, like, someone that came to Korea and wants to date here? Is it like, meeting on the road, or meeting, or like saying hi to? How has guys approached you most? Is it like you're walking on the street, someone say hi to you, or is it through dating apps? Like, which one is more like people have approached you? In what ways have people approached you?
I think my highest percentage of success comes from meeting guys in person. Like, whether it's on the street or in a bar or wherever that may be, if I meet them in person, that's where our first interaction starts and it continues, then that tends to be the most positive or the most long-lasting. I have used Bumble, I've used Tinder, I've used Hinge here, and yes, Hinge, and I have gotten dates from all three. And when I can tell you, this is my personal experience.
Yes.
Hinge, I don't know much about Hinge. In the sense of it's not that popular here. It's more popular in America, but still, I feel like it's where you go when Bumble and Tinder didn't work. Bumble, I feel like, is a nice dating app in disguise. In the sense of what I mean by that is that it comes across or is presented as, oh, you'll get a nice relationship from this. You get more honest, nice guys. No, you get more liars. Whereas Tinder, it's crazy and it's very out there, but at least they're honest. I feel like Tinder is probably the most honest dating app here. Is it successful? No, but it's not that successful. Some people are, by the grace of God. Some are, but usually it's not the most successful. But I should say I haven't had an official boyfriend in my life, so.
Yes. So, well, how has that experience been like? Have you met like people and they lied on their profile or something like that? Like,
Ooh, yes.
have you like tell me about that, please? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I've had nice dates, and I've had dates, and I've had, oh no, how do I get out of this place kind of date.
Yes.
So let me think. What's a good one? Do you want me to talk about the one that I told you about earlier?
It's okay. Yeah, I don't know why you said this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was quite the doozy. So I met this one on Bumble.
Yes.
And his nickname was Rocky. That wasn't his actual name, so I feel like I could say that.
Yes.
And I met him. He's not Korean. He was one of the very few foreigners that I have dated, because I tend to date Asian or Korean. It's not a kink or anything. It's just been, that tends to be who I find the nicest and most respectful.
Yes.
And so I was talking with this guy. He seemed very nice. We had a very specific conversation that was quite lengthy about what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do, in the sense of, like, I didn't want to go too far, too fast. I wanted to actually, try and make this go the right way.
Yes.
And make this a good relationship. And he was like, oh, I respect that. That's great. I mean, I'm fully with that. I understand you. Fully respect that. Great. I'm like, awesome. That's great that he's saying that he's respecting these boundaries. Well, we get to dinner. It's fine. Dinner goes well. We leave dinner. We're walking. And then at a certain point, I realize, hold on, where are we walking to? And so I ask him, so are we headed in a certain direction? Where are we going? He's like, we're going back to my apartment. I'm like, what? No, we're not. We're not going back to your apartment. We talked about this. He's like, oh, well, I have this special tea I would like to make for you. I'm like, no. Because as soon as that door closes, all promises fly out the window.
Yes.
Are invalid. No. And so I said, no, we're not doing that. He's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Totally respect that. Let's go get some coffee. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's get some coffee. We went to get some coffee. We left, we got to go, and then we start walking again. I'm like, so where are we going now? He's like, back to my apartment. I'm like, no, we're not. We're not going back to your apartment. He's like, okay, fine. I totally respect that. Respect. So then we're just walking, and you might think, why didn't you just leave? People pleaser in me at the time.
Yeah.
This was still early on. This was 2 years ago. I was like, you don't want to just leave. So I'm just waiting it out. So we end up walking. We're walking to this kind of park area. And here in Korea, it's very well lit in most parks. Great. By coincidence, it was very misty that night, and it was very foggy, which, for one, when you're already a little uncomfortable with the person you're around, makes you a little more uncomfy.
Yes.
And then he didn't help by saying, wow, this is like a serial killer movie. I'm like, you don't say that. You don't say that on a first date. I don't know if you mean that or not.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I know he was taking a picture of the park
Yes.
with all the mist. He's like, wow, it's like a horror movie with a serial killer. I'm like, yeah, I hope I don't get killed. Okay. I was like, I hope that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I want to take a picture before the lights turn off. I was like, excuse me? Lights turn off? What? And he's like, oh, I mean, getting dark. I mean, it's getting dark. I'm like, sure. Okay. And then like 10 p.m. rolls around, and sure enough, the lights in the area turn off. So it's dark.
So he knew that,
He knew
that the light is going to turn
And
off by 10 p.m. and he didn't want to
thought,
tell. Yeah.
this guy, what? And so at that point, I was just thinking, how do I get out of this? How do I go home? And we were talking about movies and whatever. I thought, okay, we're talking about movies. What could that possibly lead into? We were talking about Home Alone. I was mid-sentence, tongue down my throat. And he kept saying, oh, you stay, my apartment's really close, come. And I was, no. And so eventually I was able to convince him that I had an appointment the next morning and I needed to go home and I wanted to go home. I had to tell him multiple times, I want to go home.
So he initiated the kissing.
Oh, he initiated everything. Yeah.
Like in a way to lure you to his house. Yeah.
Yeah, he was trying his hardest, and I was.
And this was on a first date.
It's the first date.
Wow.
After we had,
So,
here's the thing, and this was after having this detailed conversation about how I didn't want to do any of that.
yes.
Respect. Anyway, so then this goes down as one of my worst dates I've ever been on, because I get up to throw away my coffee that I'd finished a while ago, but the thing was the lights were off, right? So and to this day I don't know what it was, but I bent down to throw it in the garbage can and something was poking out and I hit my eye on it. Right?
Wow.
I hit my good eye on it. And so, of course, it hurt, but I was not about to make that an excuse for me to stay longer.
Yes.
And he was like, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you want me to help you? I'm like, no, I'm fine. We're good. I'm fine. It hurt a lot, but I was trying to be like, I want to go. I want to leave. And so eventually we part, and then I immediately call my friend to tell her about the situation, and I was mad. I was so mad.
Yes.
Fast forward, next day, I had to go to the emergency room.
Wow.
Because I couldn't see that well. My eye was kind of hurting. Turns out I was leaking, and so I had to get stitches put in my eye.
Yes.
And they're still there to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, they're never taking those stitches out. They're staying there because they don't want to cause more problems. But I'm like, I texted him as best I could with the vision I had, and I was like, how dare you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've had those kind of dates, and then I've had the very nice dates. It's
But in terms of in online, especially dating apps, I've heard people say that a lot of scammers there.
There are some, yeah.
Yeah, and as well, how do you identify something that will lead to a real dating from maybe looking at the person's profile or looking at the starting conversations? What starting conversations do you usually get that lure you to chat more with the person?
To be honest, the things that, and this is a tip for any guy watching.
Okay, guys.
Do not start a conversation with, hi, sexy. Don't do it. Don't do it. Unless you are asking for a very specific thing. If you want a nice date, don't do that. Or just say, hi, how are you? How are you doing? That's fine. Don't start with, you're so beautiful. Don't do that, because it creeps us out a little bit, because we get the creepy guys saying, oh, you're so beautiful, like right off the bat. First sentence, wait later. You can say that later, not at the very beginning, because you're like, suspicious. It's like, do you want my money, or do you want me? It's like, do you want the thing? It's
Yeah, but
it's,
let me ask you this before I finish.
yeah.
I have a friend that one time she said to me, "Oh, there are a lot of guys disturbing me." But then she sent me a screenshot of people saying, "Hi, hi, 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 hi." She never respond to anyone. So I was like, if let's assume I'm one of those that said hi to her and she didn't respond. Like I saw hi, 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 hi. So apart from hi, what opening sentence do you think catches a girl's attention when you want to get a girl's attention to be different from every other person? Because every other person is saying hi, 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 hi to her. When she sent me this screenshot, I saw like hi, 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 number one. So what should a guy do to make it different? Or what has someone done to you, especially one of the good dates that caught your attention?
I would say, I mean, the hi, how are you is fine and all, as long as it's not just hi, because just hi is such low effort. It's so low effort. But I think something that really does like hit a chord for a lot of girls is when you comment on something that they wrote in their bio, or they put in their bio, not on their pictures. Or if you comment on a picture that's not about her. That, like, for example, if you put a picture of your dog, say, oh, that's such a cute dog. Or if you put a picture of like a pretty landscape or something, it's like, oh, that was a pretty like picture of the mountains that you put. Do that, because it takes the initial like attention off of her, because she's expecting the guys to initially say stuff about her. But if you say things about things that aren't her, but she put in her bio or her other pictures, then that kind of brings her attention to you, because that wasn't expected.
Wow. That's but yeah. But most guys say hi, 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 and wow.
Yeah, because guys are visual. Guys are visual.
Yes.
Girls are emotional. So guys think, oh, I'm visual. They must be visual too. They must appreciate when I like bring attention to their visuals, how pretty, how gorgeous, how wonderful they look, or something. And you might think, yeah, you might like it, but that's just like sending something to her saying, yeah, but what are you asking for exactly? What are your intentions behind those words?
Yeah.
Like, really, what are you looking for here? Whereas if you say something that had nothing to do with her looks,
Yes.
then at first, for the very first thing, you can say that later, but like at the very beginning, then that makes her feel it's more genuine. You're like, okay, he's looking at the things that aren't just, how big my boobs are or something. It's like that kind of thing.
Yes. Well, this has been an interesting interview and conversation as well, because that I must commend you. That's kind of energy that you exhibit. It has kind of good aura. You understand, that comes out from you, that makes everything calm, and the way you talk and everything. I must say, I believe the other people, the viewers also listening, will also feel the way I felt. You understand, like the good aura coming from you, and the way you narrated your situations and everything. So I really appreciate you for coming, and I hope we will bring her back for another interview. And I hope. Thank you very much, Anna, for coming. I really appreciate it.
Well,
Please, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you click the subscribe button before you leave, because every week we will be bringing interesting interviews to you as always. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Rachel, Anna, for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.